So here we go. All the anticipation, all of the build-up is about to end right here. We're just moments away now from the Formula Regional European Championship, presented or certified by the FIA for 2026. Qualifying Part 2 is about to get underway in just moments' time. Here as we get ready. Of course, if you missed this morning/yesterday's race, we had King Nakamura win race number 1. Race number 2 went the way of Rashid Al Daheri, spoiler alert. And of course, Rashid Al Daheri got his first win in Freck in the Formula Regional European Championship. He will be hoping to go back to back. Of course, if he can go back to back, he will be quite happy. King Nakamura, of course, got his first pole yesterday as well. And of course, with a brand new push-to-pass system, anything and anything will happen, especially in this championship. We're just moments away now from qualifying, so let's get ready as we roll the intro. Welcome to the beautiful Alpine Mountains. We are about to get ready for qualifying. This, the second part of qualifying, and this will set the grid for race number 3. That, of course, a bit later on tomorrow. We live from 9 AM for that. But we're about to get qualifying part 2 underway. This will set the grid for race number 3 for the weekend, which will make it a lot interesting. If you guys missed yesterday's races, we had a lot of action, a lot of chances to use the brand new system, the push-to-pass system that is conveniently available for all of these drivers. New chassis, of course, tested with the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship, completely tested with those. The Tortoise 2326 chassis, a big part in yesterday's race, and of course another big part in yesterday's race was the push-to-pass system. Apply yourself an extra 25 horsepower heading up and down the back or front straights, whichever one it is, and of course it will not be used in qualifying sessions, but of course you could use it 5 times. We saw a few times yesterday and a few hints as to how our commentators know how the push-to-pass system is being used in one way. The light flashes twice on the back of the car where the rain lights are. So when that flashes twice, there is normally a push-to-pass being used for these drivers. So it sort of does give us that chance to sort of see when those push-to-passes are used. And of course, you can only use them 5 times throughout the race. It should be very interesting to see as to how they are used, especially in this session. Well, of course, they can't be used in this session, so it'll be very interesting to see how they'll be used in race number 3 for the week. And as I said in the opening pre-part to this stream, race number 1 was won by King Nakamura, and then, of course, the win by Rashid Al Daheri. But technically, over the line, it was Dion Gouda. Dion Gouda, of course, got awarded a 5-second time penalty for a false start, or jump start, as you'd call it. Got awarded that 5-second time penalty, and that dropped him right back down to, I think, about 9th or 10th in the overall classification. There were a few penalties to go over in yesterday's session, in yesterday's race. A few of those were for mainly track limits. We did see a penalty for Sebastian Weldon as well that dropped him back down the grid. I think that was a 10-second time penalty for Sebastian Weldon for exceeding track limits one too many times. You do that too many times and you can be in a bit of strife, and that's exactly what happened in yesterday's race. Race 2, though, was everything we expected in terms of the action, in terms of practically everything. Everything you could have imagined happened in yesterday's race. Safety cars galore, a 3-car pile-up here at Slosh Gold, which inevitably brought out the safety car in itself. Quite a dramatic race 1 and race 2. Of course, race 1 was last night. Race 2 this morning from about 7:30, and since then I've been quite busy streaming Porsche Carrera Cup Australia. So yeah, it was quite good. I've been streaming that over on my Twitch. So that's been quite fun. A bit of difference in terms of YouTube and Twitch. I do use Twitch, don't I? I do. So yeah, I've been busy in between. But yeah, give me your predictions as to who will grab pole in this session down below in the chat. I'll be reading every single chat when possible. So yeah, qualifying now underway. We've got a 15-minute session, and whilst I was yapping just a few moments ago, this session has gotten underway. We've got 9.5 minutes to go. The drivers have now put temperature through the tyres. If you're not used to a Formula Reginol European Championship qualifying session, it does take these Pirellis maybe 2 or 3 laps to get up to temperature. And of course, once they do get up to temperature, it can be quite satisfying when you have the maximum grip and, of course, a clear track in front of you. Now, we just have had an ADAC GT Masters qualifying session out on circuit, a GT qualifying session out on circuit. So the track will be quite nicely rubbered in from that session. Of course, a lot of rubber down from DTM and, of course, from the GT4 Germany race that happened just after we were finished here on track. So a lot of rubber laid down since race number 2. So this track will be quite quick in itself. As we see, look, Sebastian Weldon going fastest through the first and second sector. Purple. So very quick indeed from the American driver as he makes his run of the line. Andrea Dup does a 1:28.8. Only 3/10 off the pace of what we saw in Q1. Sebastian Weldon goes faster than anyone. 1:26.9 the lap there. Yesterday, we saw a 1:25.7 from Kenny Nakamura Berta. So again, I was thinking it was 1:28, but it was a 1:25.7. So still a couple of seconds off the times we saw in qualifying 1 yesterday, which of course set the grid for race number 1 and race number 2. Race 2 was, of course, a reverse grid race. Sebastian Weldon continuing to push on with it. Munoz up in a second spot. There with a 1:26.4, about half a second off the pace of Andrea Dup. So it was a very good first lap time there. As now we see Swerden going fastest through the first sector here. Look, purple for the moment. We'll see, of course, if that does get knocked off throughout this session. You could only think it would get knocked off. As Sebastian Weldon now makes his run through turn number 5, out through turn number 6, turn 7 on the exit, use all the curb. Purple now, look, through the second sector. Continuing to improve in itself as Swerden now 1.7 seconds faster through the second sector. So very good first opening couple of sectors for Swerden. And of course, same for Sebastian Weldon. We'll see now, look, Sebastian Weldon goes faster than anyone. 1:26.5 and only 1.2 seconds off the pace of what we saw from K&B yesterday. The fastest time in qualifying, 1:25.7, which of course put him on pole. Giovanni Maschio now goes second, and Wes Swerden up into P5. Of course, we do still have drivers to set a lap time in this session. Sebastian Weldon stays P1 and continues to go faster than anyone through the first sector. He's gone purple for the moment, but of course, how long will that last for? Is the big question. So now, here look, Sebastian Weldon, as I've just said, purple through the first sector. We're now starting to see some drivers make their way out onto the circuit. 6.5 minutes to go. Of course, some drivers did a few install laps, few warm-up laps, sat in the pit lane and let a heat soak go through the tyres, which of course will be helping in terms of performance. It will not be taking anything out of the tyres. It will just be helping in terms of the performance. Sebastian Weldon going faster than anyone through the first and second sector. Purple by nearly 3/10 over his own personal best. Munoz quickly spares that away. The French driver, purple through the first sector by nearly 2/10 over Sebastian Weldon. Reza Swerden, Munoz is flying through the second sector. 3/10 up now. Look now, Sebastian Weldon makes his run to the line. This will be an improvement in terms of lap time. What can he do? It's 3/10 faster, 126.1. Good first opening lap there from Sebastian Weldon. We now see, Reginol, the British driver, making his run out of the final corner and run to the line. It's P2, 126.5, about 3/10 off. Munoz goes second. Lost a bit of time in that final sector, so Sebastian Weldon's final sector there must have been pretty smart for himself to go to the top of the session. Now, Weldon continuing to improve as his tyres just get better and better and better and better. Purple through the first sector. Of course, cool track temperatures. Only 4.1 degree track temperatures here in the Austrian Alps, or the Austrian mountains. Only 4.1 degrees in terms of track temperature here, as Swerven continuing to improve through the first sector. Purple for the moment, but how long will that stay that way? Sebastian Weldon now up through the first sector as well, personal best. A few other drivers also improving. Kai Darianani has just gone up into P3, displacing Swerven off a top 3 start. 4.5 minutes to go though, so still a lot of time. Rashid Al-Dahiri still in the pit lane here, so possibly a problem with what was our race 2 winner. So a bit of strife there, as Swerven now has backed out of it. Here, look, we're currently looking here at car 4, of which is Swerven, making his run around the penultimate corners on the circuit, dipping his way down to the final corner. A bit of dust being kicked up from a car in front. Rashid Al-Dahiri still not made his way out of pit lane. Maybe just letting that heat soak go through the tyres. What has happened with Rashid Al-Dahiri? Jagardi now making his run out of the final corner. The Monegasque driver from Monaco. Francot now goes to the top of the session. And it's a 125.7. Very, very good lap time there from Reno Francot. Sano goes fourth. 126.4 now. But Reno Francot, what a lap. Now Rashid Al-Dahiri is that. Look, Rashid Al-Dahiri, I think, making his way out of the pit lane. So he now tries to set a lap time. Will be good enough, possibly, for pole position. Here looks Sebastian Weldon making his run through the fast left-hander. About 600ths up on Reno Francot. So this could be a good battle for, well, what would be provisional pole position for the moment. Now, look, making his run through the fast right-hander. Now dipping into the final corner and out the other sides. What is this like going to be for Sebastian Weldon? Goes to the top of the session, 126.0. Now, my timing screen said a 125.7 from Reno Francot, so must have been a glitch there. But that's what my timing screen said. Munoz, Francot improving through the second sector. Purple going faster than anyone for the moment. Possibly a transponder issue for Rashid Al-Dahiri. Still saying he's in the pit lane, when of course he has exited the pit lane. With 2 minutes and 12 seconds to go. Reno Francot now to the top. 125.6. That's a very good lap. And displaces Kei Nakamura Berta from yesterday's pole time. 125.7. The fastest of the weekend from Reno Francot. Oh, and a spin. And he spun in the process. Sorry, no, that is Sag Al-Moshri around. Thought that was Reno Francot, but that was Al-Moshri going around at the first corner. Very, very strange. We're going to replay that in a few moments' time. But Reno Francot, fastest overall, 125.7. Very good lap indeed. Sebastian Weldon now personal best through the first and second sector. See, of course, if the American driver can improve. Now way up the curb on the exit as he looks for an improvement. Making his run to the line. P2, 125.7. So still about a 10th off Francot for pole position. Francot is improving, actually. He's on par with his own personal best with a minute to go in this session. Anya Frey and Giovanni Maschio, watch out for them. Maschio now up at a P8. Gomez up at a P7. Anya Frey, watch out for him. Personal best through the first and second sector. Doesn't look like to be any sort of big improvement. Rashid Al-Dahiri, personal best through the first and second sector. Reno Francot, 125.699. Lost a bit of time in that final sector. He was up by 0.08 of a second. Lost that in the final corner. What can Reginol Harry do? Only P5, 126.1. Not good enough for pole position. But watch out for Reginol, who is going faster than anyone through the first sector. Propel by 0.1 of a second. Wow. Quick through the first sector there. Reginol now making his run into Slosh Gold, and now the other side, just less than 10 seconds remaining on the clock. So this will, of course, be the final lap for the British driver. The Rotor Motorsport team would absolutely love to get a pole position, but can he keep the time up? Flicking the car through. About 600ths down now. Sideways on the exit of turn 8. As he really tries to find all the grip. Sorry, that was turn 7. Now making his run up through turn 8, the fast right-hander, then flick it into turn 9. And out the other side, then make your run to the line. Reginol about 600ths down as he flicks the car in and drop down through the final corner, way up the curb on the exit. And now the run to the line. What's this lap going to be? Is it any good for pole position? Sano is improving. Reginol Harry is improving. And I think that's about it. And your phrase not improving. But watch out for Reginol Harry, who could be a threat for pole position here. Now making his run through the final corner, turn 9. And out the other side, Yuki Sano, the Japanese driver, also looking for a pole position. Possibly Renault front car has improved. P3 for Yuki Sano, 125.7. It's a 125.5 for Renault front car. What can the other drivers do? No improvement so far. Sano up at a P3. Munoz P4. Swerven P5. Al-Moshri is the only person that is improving through the second sector. And your Frey stays P14. Kostic doesn't improve. Duke doesn't improve. I think everybody's crossed the line. Yes, they have. And that will be the provisional results. Renault Francois at the moment, P1, and doing a very good job in that session. 125.6, the time to beat from the next group. Wow. What a lap. What a lap from Renault Francois. Of course, backed up by Sebastian Weldon, Yuki Sano, Munoz, Swerven, Reginol Harry in P6, Gomez P7, Gigardi in P8, Stoltzmanis P9, and of course, Kai Darianani in position 10. This, of course, was the spin from Al-Masergi, taking him right around on the exit of turn 2. He was way up the curb, actually. Actually lost the car before he hit the curb, and of course, in effect, spun him around. Lucky, of course, for there not to be a red flag. There is Renault Francois making his run into turn up 1. Turn the car in. And out the other side. Sideways. Renault Francois as he uses all the curb on the exit. But there you go. The results show it all. Renault Francois at the top of the session. Over. Of course, Sebastian Weldon. Then, of course, Yuki Sano, 125.6. The time to 125.6. The time to beat in that session over Sebastian Weldon, Yuki Sano, Alexander Munoz, Reginol, Reginol Harry, Gabriel Gomez, Matteo Gigardi, of course, Thomas Stoltzmanis, and Kai Darianani in the Trident Motorsport team. And, of course, rounded up by Anya Frey and Saga Al-Moshri, who spun on the exit of turn number 1. So what a session that was. Wow. I'm going to go straight into it now with qualifying to Group B. Of course, that the time to beat 125.6. If, of course, you can beat that, you will be on shot for a pole position. We now have the last 11 cars to run. 11 to 14 cars to run in this session. Of course, we'll see how that plays out throughout this session. As now, look, that is Kai Darianani. A few big names, actually, in this session. One of the big names is, of course, one of the big names, of course, Alex Ninovich. Also have Miguel Acosta, Anya Frey, Andre Zup, Jan Przerozowski, Alexander Abkazava, Kabir Anurag, of course, in this session. Rahim Albadi as well. Followed by as well Jules Russell, Zenul Chi, Maximilian Popov, the Jamaican sensation. Andrei Kostic, King Nakamura Perta, Dion Gauda, Marcus Staita. Rounding out your grid here in the second part of qualifying. You can see car 78 is Gabriel Gomez. Sorry, that was not Gabriel Gomez. That is Manuel Olivieri, the rookie driver. Green light on at the end of the pit lane. We're already getting underway for the second part of qualifying. 15 minutes, just like the other session was. And we're now going to see who can top off the time of a 125.6. 125.693. And of course, you can beat that. You'll be in a pretty good position for race number 3 tomorrow from 9 o'clock. So the drivers now make their run up towards turn number 3 and will be trying to get some of the heat soak through the tyres. We might see what we saw from that other session. A few drivers just pulling into the pit lane, trying to pull some heat soak through these tyres, trying to get the brakes to warm the tyres a little bit, get the brakes up to temperature. Once you've got those brakes up to temperature, you just got to hope that sitting in the pit lane for 8 or 9 minutes helps get some of the heat through the tyres. Can be quite an effective strategy as well. A few big names, as I said in this session. Maximilian Popov, very quick in race trim, tried to make his way through the grid. Of course, Alexander Abkazava in this session as well. If you think back to the Middle Eastern Championship, won the first race in the brand new cars. The first race in these cars, he won. Alexander Abkazava did, so very much known to these cars. Of course, the Middle Eastern Championship did do testing as well, so don't think these drivers are brand new to these cars. A few of these drivers did do that series, and it was Andrei Kostic, for example, Maximilian Popov as well, competed in the Middle Eastern Championship, competed, of course, at Abu Dhabi, Qatar, and, of course, Dubai as well, before then coming back for another round in Abu Dhabi, and the corkscrew section. And then, of course, ending off the season in Dubai, Dubai Autodrome. But yeah, now getting the second part of qualifying underway. There, see you look, Alex Abkazava, who, if you remember back to yesterday's race, unfortunately ended up in a bit of strife, bit of damage, and actually ended up with that car not continuing. Another big name, of course, in this session, Matteo Gigardi as well, who unfortunately also got caught up in one of the incidents that caused the safety car in yesterday's race. They've been able to get that car completely fixed, and he's now back out onto the circuit. So good to see there. Welcome in, Arav. Welcome in, my friend. You've joined with about 11 minutes left in this second part of qualifying here for the Formula Regional European Championship here. As the drivers now try and bleed some of these tyres into temperature, and we'll be getting some fast lap times in a few moments' time. Of course, if you missed out the first part of qualifying, yeah, I joined late. All good, man. All good. Of course, you missed out in the first part of qualifying. 125.693, the time to beat for Group B. If you're new to Frecker or Freck, and it's the same as last year, in terms of how qualifying works, the top half of the grid goes out first, and then the bottom half. So practically the grid is split into 2 groups. Now, normally, in this first round, what they'll do is half of the grid goes out first in Group A, half of the grid goes out first in Group B. But in a normal situation, what you would have is half of the grid in the top half of the championship. So, for example, first down to 8th goes out first, and then 8th, so on, goes out in the next session, which of course we do have the most amount of drivers out in this session, 15, which is the rest of the grid. We did have the first half of the grid out in Q1. Now we have the second half out in Q2. So come round 2, the qualifying format will work the same, except it will go in championship order. So, time's now starting to flood through on my timing screen here. It's getting to the point where it's nearly lagging. Let's head down to the pit lane now and catch up with Jen Perezowski.
Down here with RPM team driver Giovanni Maschio, who's just stepped out.
Sorry, Giovanni Maschio.
Qualifying. Giovanni, how was that?
Yeah, not a super easy qualifying. For sure, not the best we could hope. But on the race, we are really strong and push to pass it really strong, so we will enjoy the race for sure.
Flying the flag, of course, it's an Irish team, but based in your country of Italy. It was a tough run yesterday for your two teammates, Yannick Chirosky and Miguel Costa. Did you see what happened in race 2?
Yeah, I was right behind them. They had some contact with other car in front, someone spun, and I could avoid. They were right in the middle of the chaos and they couldn't. So it was unlucky for them.
Giovanni, great to have you back in the championship. We wish you the best of luck for race 3 this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian, I was going to say,
Giovanni.
Ian, we have to ask Giovanni about the hairstyle. I mean, you can barely recognise it this season.
He's just walked off. I'm sure that's probably pushing it, and I'm not wanting to comment. This is his car, by the way. Giovanni Maschio for the RPM team. Irish owned by Keith Donoghue, who's up on pit wall there. Based in Piacenza in Italy. Keith, of course, a former racer himself, and a pretty handy golfer, I must say, with a handicap of down in the, well, it's in single digits. Giovanni Maschio, yes, bad luck for his teammates. Miguel Costa and Yannick Chirosky out in race 2 will be looking for a good result. Yannick Chirosky, of course, remember, 3rd for the Tony Kart racing team in the FIA World Cup Racing Championships a few seasons ago. And Miguel Costa, coming up from the Spanish Formula 4 Championship, highly rated. He is the American-born Brazilian driver for this, the RPM racing team. Chris, who's topping the times midway through this second qualifying group?
It is Aston.
It is the Aston Martin back driver of Newman Chi. Good question. Newman Chi topping the first part of this session so far as we really start to get into the deep end of qualifying. Of course, Miguel Acosta currently sits P2, Jan Perezowski, but of course, the lap times have not come through quickly. These are not the quicker part. This is not the quicker part of this session. Here, of course, when first part of qualifying laid down the rubber for these guys, so you would think that 125.693 would be knocked off quite easily in this session for the pole position. And we'll see how that runs for these drivers. As now see, look. This is Miguel Acosta making his run through the fast right-hander of turn 6, now through turn 7. Miguel Acosta, very successful in Brazilian F4, made his way through and then into the Italian F4 Championship and has made his way. He was very successful, as you heard there mentioning was Ian. Costa very quick in the Tony Kart Championship as well, for the karting championship as well. Costa now up at a P1, 125.7, about 0.1 off the pace. And that's a very quick first lap time I've just noticed from Acosta, 125.6. Kei Nakamura Berta, 125.4. What a lap from Kei Nakamura Berta. As the times start to flood through, what a lap. And Kei Nakamura Berta, on his first lap out, has bagged what would be a pole position. Alex Zinovich up at a P2, but Kei Nakamura Berta cannot be stopped. 125.4, that is on his 5th lap. So, whilst we've been all doing whilst we've been chatting quite a lot, the times have dropped massively. And Kei Nakamura Berta's just had his time deleted for track limits. Confirmation there from race control. Lap time has been deleted for Kei Nakamura Berta for track limits. And this, look, coming out of the pit lane, that's Miguel Acosta, I think, who's gotten to a bit of drama. It's Enya Frey, sideways on pit lane exit. Possibly an unsafe release. That's Jan Perezowski. I was going in an ooh and ah whilst Ian was talking. Jan Perezowski getting all sorts of sideways as he made his run through. Here is Kei Nakamura Berta now looking to set another pole position time with his lap time being deleted. This is going to be an important lap for Keen Nakamura Berta. Kenny Baggy's second pole position with just 5.5 minutes to go. Alex Ninevich up through the second sector. Keen Nakamura Berta also up. 125.2, went faster than what he did before. And now has gone back to provisional pole. But of course he cannot let that invalidate. He cannot let that lap be an invalidation. It would very much ruin his session. Alex Ninevich now making his run of the line with just over 5 minutes to go. Second spot, 125.4. It does improve by 0.2, but it's not good enough for to top off the Japanese-American driver of Keen Nakamura Berta. Very successful in the Italian F4 Championship in karting, and now has gone back to back in all sorts of championships. Very successful in any championship he really touched, to be completely honest with you. And he's now starting to prove that. As now we here look, one of the motorsport cars making their run up through turn 3, and on the exit of Slosh Gold goes Maximilian Popov, personal best through the first sector. Just in front of him is the Japanese-American driver of Keen Nakamura Berta. I think Popov has certainly rolled out of this lap, I think. Yes, he has. So Maximilian Popov rolling out of that lap, and a Prema driver just in behind him of Salim Hanna, who has set a lap and has put in P3 in this session. So very good opening lap as we head down to Ian.
And he's gone faster. The Reno front off from the first session. The temperature, the sun shining. The track temperature is warming up. These Pirelli tyres, they're running them at around about 1.1, 1.2 bar of pressure, depending on who you talk to. You can see behind me on the pit wall. This is the Prema Racing team. They have won every edition of the Formula Regional European Championship, with the exception of 2021, which was Greg Rossi. We go back to 2019, Frederick Vesti, Gianluca Pedikov, Dom Brazil in 2020. Dynamite Dino in 22. Andrea Kimi Antonelli. I'm missing a year 24. Someone's going to kick me, of course. Fast Freddy Slater last year as well. They've won every edition. It's going to come to me in a moment. This is the team. Also, the pole position in the Indianapolis 500 last year. 2024 champion. Chris, I'm going to kick myself.
He's currently doing very well in Formula 2. And another highly rated Brazilian.
I've gone blank.
Rafa Kamara.
Oh, of course. Sorry, Rafa. I'm so sorry, Rafa. And Dudu Massa, of course, Rafa Kamara, the Ferrari junior driver. Pirema have won every edition except 2021. Keen Nakamura Berta, currently on pole position, as you correctly point out, Chris. He did win the United Arab Emirates Formula Regional Championship, last year's Italian F4 Championship. Quick mathematics, 40 points for a super license. He's almost already eligible to drive a Formula 1 car in FP1 as it stands. He's looking good. Currently on pole position. Miguel Costa was briefly up in the P2. Speaking of the Prema Racing Team, car 88, El Colombiano, Salim Hanna Hernandez. Speaking of driver mentors, we spoke about Tico Capello, 3-time Le Mans 24-hour champion, helping out Emanuele Olivieri. What about the great 6-time Formula 1 race winner and 2-time Indianapolis 500 champion, Juan Pablo, who is a driver coach mentor to his young protege, Salim Hanna, and has been for the last half-decade. Salim Hanna for the Prema Racing Team behind me in car 88. Where is the South American at the moment, Chris?
Replay there of Newman. Cheer thanks to Ian down in pit lane.
Newman Chi going a bit wide on the exit. There, good old shot there of Newman Chi going wide. And the South American of Salim Hanna is currently sitting P6 at the moment. He's bad at the game. That's amazing to know, Harrison. Also, that information was completely useless to me. Completely useless. But yet again, that is Harrison. What am I saying? That's just the definition of Harrison. 1 minute 30 seconds to go. The driver's now on a few cooldown laps as they try and continue to soak heat through the Pirelli rubber. Trying to keep the temperatures up. Of course, lap time has already been beaten. 125.2 in the lap time so far. That is a good definition of sideways. I think that was Jules Vassell getting all sorts of sideways on the exit of turn 8. Salim Hanna now making his run out of the final corner and run to the line is the North American driver. Up to P3 he goes, 125.4. Any drivers that have not beaten K&B's time so far, 125.6 is the time to beat. And drivers that have not beaten that is Olivieri onwards. So practically half the grid have. Half the grid haven't. Salim Hanna up through the first sector. He's gone faster than anyone, and it's purple all the way through the first sector. Possibly a slipstream from the car in front of him of Newman Chi. Zhenru Chi, as he's called in China. Newman Chi, as he's called in America. Alex Ninevich now going faster than anyone, and so is Olivieri. So the timing screen starting to light up, and we might even drop into the 24s here. Salim Hanna, quick through the first sector. So is Ninevich, purple through the first sector as well. K and B not improving. Not for the moment, but it is a personal best. So he might improve. Checkered flag drops at the start-finish line. Ninevich not improving. 0.2 down. Salim Hanna not improving either. He's 0.3 down. K and B might have just bagged his second pole position. He runs to the line. It's a 125.3. Not good enough for an improvement. What does the South American driver do of Salim Hanna? No improvement either. 125.4. What does the Aussie do of Alex Ninevich, the Australian F4 champion? Can he go any faster than the Japanese driver of K and B? No, he cannot. It's a 125.8. 6 tenths off the pace. But that is a second consecutive pole position for Keen Nakamura Berta. There is no other drivers that looks to even be close to beating the Japanese driver. It's a second consecutive pole position. Keen Nakamura Berta with the fists up in the air. Very happy with that one. And the classification says so. Keen Nakamura Berta, 125.2 over Alex Ninevich, Salim Hanna, Dion Garrett, Jen Perezowski, Miguel Acosta, Emmanuel Olivieri, Marcus Sater, and Rahim Albadi in position 15. What a lap from Keen Nakamura Berta. That is the kind of lap you expected from an F4, an Italian F4 champion in his own right. What a lap. What a lap that was. And a lap for the gods, let me tell you that much. Bia Marcus Sater and Rahim Albadi lining out the grid there. So what a lap. What a lap. And 125.2 was the time to beat in the end for the young American driver. The Japanese driver. That it was the time to beat. Well, there was no red flags in that session. That's always a positive. And it's stuff you like to see as well. But yeah, got out pole position, 125.2. The Japanese driver has bagged himself back-to-back pole positions here this weekend. Can he go back-to-back races? Can he go race 1 and race 3? We'll have to wait and find out. Of course, Keen Nakamura Berta did not do very well in race number 2. He'll be wanting to back that up for race number 3. Of course, he only finished P8. It now puts the Yasmarinian driver of Rashid Al Dahiri on pole position. Not on pole position. It puts him in the championship lead. On my correction, it puts him on the championship lead. And it's dropped Keen back to 3rd in the championship. So, a bit of pressure on himself. Can the Japanese driver dominate in race 3? Have to wait and find out. Catch you then. Bye-bye.
Make sure you join us at 40 minutes past 4 for race 2.